Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome back. You are watching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, and I am making a video today on something that you've probably seen me do many times before, but I always have to remember that a number of people who come to my channel have never been there before, and maybe you just need a refresh on oiling a vintage sewing machine. In this case, we are oiling a Singer 99K. Now, this procedure is going to be very similar to quite a few vintage sewing machines, especially your straight stitch Singer sewing machines, of which there were many models, and the sort of the classic shape that you see here in the iconic black color. This is something that is familiar to many people. In fact, many people think of, when you think of vintage sewing machine, you often think of this primarily because they were sold in such huge numbers for so long. So what am I going to do? I have been working on this machine for a while now. I've created quite a few videos. And one of the things I wanted to share with you is that when you work on a machine and you go through the various procedures that are involved in bringing a machine back from its long slumber, as many vintage machines find themselves in, and you get them and you need to wake them up, right? You need to get them out of their slumber. So now that I have come to this portion, this phase of the restoration, one of the things that I've noticed is that over time, when you work on a machine, you notice areas that are not maybe a little more asleep than others, right? For example, in a prior video, I noticed that, boy, this was kind of stiff. This piece turned for me. If it had refused, I would have waited and used a penetrant oil. And then I've also noticed that my bobbin winder tire is kind of stiff. It moves a little stiffly. It'll loosen and then get stiff again. And we're going to talk in a minute about what that could be. Sometimes old oil gets in certain areas and it will concentrate in a certain area, cause problems with movement. And so what I'm going to be using today is I have, of course, my sewing machine oil. And I've made a video. If you haven't seen my video on what is sewing machine oil, it only took me a decade to finally get around to making that video. That video has gotten a lot of viewership, and a lot of people have told me that it was helpful. Now, the other thing I'm going to be using here is this is valve oil. Now, valve oil does not replace a sewing machine oil as your main lubricant. Valve oil is a very thin version of sewing machine oil, but it has a solvent in it which makes it a bit what I call a cleaning oil. Now, this oil is very thin and is used, was originally created and is sold for use on instruments, I believe wind instruments, where you have like brass valves and valves that you push on. In any case, I'm not a musician, so those of you who have a music background can probably explain this better. But I find that this very thin oil, and it has a solvent. It has some smell, but not very much. And I usually try it before I go to one of the stronger penetrant oils in case I need it. So I am going to start, before I oil the rest of the machine, I'm going to start with my valve oil. You don't have to start with valve oil unless you've got an area on your machine that, if you followed the order of the procedures I use, you will already know certain areas are a little stiffer than others. So I know that this area here is a little stiffer. I'm going to put a little valve oil, and it doesn't, like I say, it's very thin, so it's going to pour faster than regular sewing oil. And then I have my, there's a little opening here. This is a port that was designed. This little hole here is designed. Let me zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. And we'll turn the cam and you'll see this hole here is specifically, and if you forget from the video, just look in your manual, it'll show you. That's where you normally put sewing oil. I'm putting some valve oil, and I'm even going to add some here. That's not a normal oiling point, but again, I want to make sure that that I can soften up any stuck oil. Got a little bit of my valve oil that dripped down, so I'm going to wipe that up. Okay, so I'm going to let those two areas sit. Those are the areas that I noticed that were a little stiff, most of the areas of the machine. Again, this is a straight stitch machine, so mechanically it is wonderful, but not quite as, say, complex as some of your zigzag and multi-stitch machines. Those have more moving parts, understandably. Okay, so I've shown you in prior videos how I clean a machine, how I literally begin at the top and I work my way down because gravity is a thing and dust and grime will fall. Lint will typically fall, and I don't want to have to clean twice, so I start at the top, and I do this basically with oiling, right? So I'm going to come across, and of course this machine is wonderfully simple. You don't have to really guess. If you forget what areas are to be oiled, put where you place sewing machine oil. Your owner's manual may show you, but I find it helpful, or at least people have told me they find it helpful to watch a video on this topic. Now, one oiling point you don't want to miss, and it would be easy to do so, I'm going to pull the machine toward us a little bit here, is sitting right there. And of course your manual should show this to you, but right here is an oil port, okay? And it's there because there is a place for sewing machine oil, because you have a drive shaft, right? The drive shaft, which is right here. This is where, of course, your hand wheel, the hand wheel of this machine will be installed, right? But of course, this is the shaft. As it turns, it comes in contact with the needle bar, which you can see moving over there on the left, far left. And of course, as this shaft turns, it's being held. Some of you might say, well, it looks like a napkin ring, but it's a bushing, right? And that bushing, you have metal parts moving against metal parts. You definitely need to have lubrication there, just like you would in a car engine. So now, how much oil do you put? Some of you, again, if you're new to vintage machines or new to oiling sewing machines, you may have asked this question. Hey, how much, move us back, we get a little bit more in the frame there. How much oil should I put? Normally, okay, let's say your machine is running great, you haven't used it maybe in, some time, 6 months, and you had a project. Now you're going to start a new project. What is a good thing to do is to do what is called normal oiling, and that means 1 drop, okay? So let's start out with just 1 drop, okay? Here, and then I have 1 here, I have 1 here, I have another hole. These are easy to spot, right? I mean, they're literally right in front of you. And I've already put my valve oil here because I want it to soak. And I've also added, I've already put the valve oil here on my bobbin winder little shaft there. Okay, now that is typically the way you oil your sewing machine when it is fully tuned and it's been overhauled, it's running great. However, if you, and many of my viewers are in this situation, that's one of the reasons they look for this channel, is that you've got an old machine you're trying to wake up, right? It's been sitting, or you don't know its history, you got it in a thrift store, or someone put it out on the curb. Sadly, people do. That's better than just putting it in the garbage can. It's hard to believe people do that with these incredible machines. But when you are trying to get a machine to come back, okay, remember it's been sitting a long time, yes, that 1 drop of oil will certainly help get your machine moving. But remember, sewing machines that have been sitting either have old oil that's gummed up, that's pretty common, or the machine basically is dry. Okay, because when the machines were tested in the factory, when they left, they had oil between those moving parts. And then, of course, they would get to the dealer, people would take them home, they would use them, they would maintain them. And so when you're trying to get an old machine that's been sitting dormant for a long time out of its hibernation, you want to add more. This is not what you normally do. In fact, your manual, Your sewing manual for the 99 or any of these machines will say, typically, let's say 1 drop, maybe 2 at the most. Usually just 1 drop of oil because there's no oil pan or reservoir in these machines. But I'm going to go back to where I was starting up here top, and I'm going to add 2 more. Right? That's like 3, 1, 2. I'll have a total of 3 drops of oil. You might even add even slightly more. You see some of it wanting to, it's not filling up a reservoir. I think, yeah, it created a little bubble there. Okay, so let's come around. We got 2 sides to do here. I'll go ahead and come over here to the, this of course is your, the left side of the machine. And in this side of the machine, I'm going to move the camera a bit because I want to get some nice, get some of that nice natural light there. We'll lower our tripod here just a bit. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to work on is, I'll lower you even more and change my angle here. How's that? That's what I was aiming for. Okay, so what we're trying to accomplish is to, again, we want to get all of these areas where the machine needs to be oiled. And the plate, of course, is off of here. Now, I have come through, I have cleaned the machine, gotten all the lint, as far as I know, out of our way. Remember, if you have not cleaned your machine, like I've shown in the earlier video, where you're going and getting rid of all the dust and grime, do that first. Okay, do not be tempted to say, oh, I want to get my machine oiled, because you're going to create a mess. Okay, remove the dust first, and then you should be in a good position to start the oiling. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, and in the back, right there, okay, you will notice there's a place where these pieces move, right? So you can see that piece there moving. Okay, right behind it, I want to put about 3 drops of oil. Again, that's more than you normally would, but that's okay. This is not normal oiling. This is restoration oiling. Machine has gone a long time. It needs more than it might normally otherwise require. Okay, now, because this machine is, you can't see it from above, but right here, right, we have another area. We've got an area, I'm gonna maybe even give you just a little bit more zoom here. And there we go. That's just the sunlight I really wanted. There we go. So you can see, and if you can't remember where these areas are, I'm reaching over here. Again, my machine is not plugged in. I've got my hand over here on the drive shaft, and I'm turning it, and that will show you. You can see right here, and your manual may or may not illustrate this for you right there. So I'm going to put 2 or 3 drops, right? I'm being very liberal with the oil in this particular instance, okay? Now, there is also, we have some pieces right here. I'm just working my way down, right? So we have more metal against metal, and then we got to come over here. You see this piece, right? What do we got? We have a couple of pieces here that are moving together, and it's going to be very hard to see. You're going to have to look closely. Right here, I think I see it. Hold on a minute. There we go. Right there, guys, there's a little hole that you can put oil in, and that will get oil right into, there's basically a rotating piece here that comes around. And what else do I want to do? I want to get right there, between these 2 pieces, right? And again, it's okay if you can't see it in the manual. You can see it by basically just turning the drive shaft. You can see pieces moving. I've shown this with other sewing machine videos before. Now I've got a little area right there, right? So I want to get that done. And you will notice right away, wow, it moves so nice. Yes, that's how the machine was designed. It was meant to have this. Now, there's one way you can get, this is your needle shaft. This is extremely important in terms of making sure that this is lubricated. We'll pivot, we're working our way down a little bit here. So I'm going to take, with my hand on the drive shaft, I'm pulling so that my needle is, we need a little bit better view there. There we go. You can see, hand back just a moment. Okay. Well, so here's your needle bar in its lowest position, right? Turn so that the needle bar comes up in its highest position, okay? And when it is, go right here and put a few drops of oil right there. And what happens is, as you turn the drive shaft again, you're going to coat the needle bar, at least that portion of it, right? So we're getting oiling. Now we're going to do the same thing below, and I think I want to let's lower our cam just a little bit better here. Okay, so now I want the needle bar in the lowest position, and I'm going to come right here. Have to kind of scoot between the whoops. And I want to be careful, maybe just 2 drops, because you want to keep as much oil as you can out of the bobbin area. But now look what I'm doing. As I pull up, now I should have, and I just caught that oil. Again, you can mop it up. If you drop some oil, don't panic. There's nothing wrong. You haven't hurt anything. Just you'll come back in with your cotton swab and you'll mop it up. Okay, but again, normally you would never put this much oil in a machine. Oh, I thought I'd gotten all my, look at that. I found a piece of lint somewhere. It came loose. Okay, so the point of this is that you are waking up a machine that's dry as a bone, and most of them are, okay? So now, what else do we have here? We have our presser foot bar, right? I'm going to do the same thing. It's up. Now, as I drop it, now I'm coating that whole piece of the bar there. I'll do the same thing below, and then I'm going to pull up. Now, one of the things you want to note here, on the 99s and the 66 models, and excuse me, the 185s, you have these sections here. You're going to put some oil there and some right there, because again, this goes, it needs to travel, okay? And what else do we have here? Let's keep going. Before we go any further down below, we're going to turn the machine around. I'm going to raise the cam back up. And let's just take the machine. If you don't have a Lazy Susan, I don't have one sturdy enough for my machines. I put it on a table and then I put it on this little mat so I can spin the machine around. It's a lot easier to move it that way. Just one last check, make sure I haven't missed anything over here. Okay, and what else do I want to do? I want to oil. Now normally, remember we have that oiling port behind here, that first one we started with up top, and I'm basically going to come right behind this rim though, okay, and I'm going to put just a couple of drops, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to put like a line of oil, and that's going to smooth around. I can also put a line of oil in my hand wheel, and I'll do that before we reattach the hand wheel, but at least we've got some. And by the way, don't forget that your clutch knob is going to be screwing into these threads. Let's get some oil there, and let's help the machine help us with that. What else do we have? I can actually come in here and on the bolt that holds the motor bracket to the body and just put some there. Now, I don't know if you saw this, I saw some oil drip here, and again, I'm just going to mop it up. It's okay to do this when you're waking a machine up. It's all right. I know it looks excessive, and for normal oiling, you would never do that, but in this situation, it's okay because the machine is basically waiting for us, okay? So we're going to go around, we're going to get everything oiled, and then we're going to go start looking. How is it working? Is everything freeing up? And that's what we want to do. So let's come back over to our bobbin side, or the left side of the machine, and I'll show you what we need to address down here. So this is an area that you always want to be a little mindful of. This is an area where it is natural for lint to collect. That's the machine's, that's just part of it being a sewing machine. So we don't want to go crazy with oil, because we don't want to go against what I was trying to explain earlier. Let's not create lots of mud and muck that can happen when you When you mix oil and lint, they create a really difficult kind of resistance for a machine that it doesn't need. All right, so one of the things we want to do is we're going to take, and you can see this a little bit better if I turn this, but what you want to do here is you want to put some oil right there. Now, what is there? Let me turn this once again. This is a little holder. I'll zoom in for you. I have videos some years ago that I made showing you all this, and I still have a very good and useful piece of red felt. A number of people who've gotten these machines, they think it's lint and they jerk it out. Don't pull that out. If it's red and it's sitting right there, it's supposed to be there. And it is a piece of red felt, and I'm going to put oil on it because felt is like a pad. Think of it like an ink pad, if any of you have ever used an old stamp before with ink. And what that does is it gets the machine ready for when it's going to be running, and you want to help feed oil onto the shuttle race, right? And I can even add some on top of that race, and that's not a bad thing because that's where our bobbin case is going to live, and it needs to have lubrication. All right, now some of the oil has fallen down in the bottom. Okay, now you think, well, okay, that means we're going to have a mess. So what are we going to do about that? Well, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to, it looks like I'm being contradictory to myself, but bear with me. I want to get some oil underneath this piece that is spinning at the shuttle, okay? I don't know if you could see that, but it was already sort of wicking that oil underneath it. Now I'm going to turn this, okay? And I'm just turning it back and forth. But we're not going to leave a mess. You don't want to do that because, again, what I was mentioning earlier will be a problem. So once we know we've gotten some oil underneath there and we've worked it in, now we're going to go back and mop up all this excess because we don't need oil sitting down here pooling. You don't need oil sitting down here pooling in the bottom of your shuttle race. You don't need that, right? That's not where we were trying to get it. Why was I doing this? Because I wanted oil to go underneath this big pivoting section right there, the one that's swinging back and forth, this big steel arm. I wanted it to have lubrication there, and as you can see, as I spun it around, it brought out some more oil. So we're going to keep mopping. Okay, now after you mop oil, and these cotton swabs are really good, they're pretty absorbent. I'm just using the generic cotton swab here. I haven't really gone to my precision tips. I use those when I need them. The generic swabs are a little softer, and they're actually probably better for mopping than the precision tips are. So I'm coming around. Just be careful. You don't want to lose cotton fibers down in there and create new problems. All right. So now that you've mopped that up, what else can you do? You can, if you want, you can take some alcohol in a cotton swab, and that will remove even more of the oil, right? A very thin film of oil is okay. And if you notice any lint falling on it, and you will, you can always check early, and that lint will absorb the oil, but you want to get it out soon. And I'll explain why this is important. So some of you, if you have not, sometimes if you haven't noticed, you will see that I did not go in and remove this old oil here. If you look, you might have been concerned, oh, maybe this is rust. This is actually not rust, okay? And I'll demonstrate that for you. I've got some isopropyl alcohol, and do not spray it here. You'll get it on your beautiful black paint and dissolve it. I'm putting just a little bit of 99% alcohol on my cotton swab, and when I do that, it's removing that amber color that you see there. And that amber color, because it's coming off so easily, is more than likely, and it did not leave any etching, that's old oil that has turned amber. Really, really old oil will oxidize, and then eventually it actually will turn color. It takes decades and decades for that to happen. Okay? Now, if that were rust, you would get some of it coming off, but some of it would stay embedded in the steel, and that's how you would know it's rust. So, why am I not removing this? I'm not removing it because I did there to show you. I'm actually going to go back, take some oil on my swab, cotton swab, and I'm going to go back and put it here. Now, why is that? When you have sewing machine oil, and I'm very confident that this is not rust. If I was seeing rust here, I would be seeing a lot of rust other places, and I didn't on this machine. So that's where I'm making that assumption from. Okay. Now, why is it useful to not take off all the old oil? Old sewing machine oil can act as a sort of protectant or a coating against oxidation. Now, if you really want to, yes, you can go in and I can remove as much old oil as I can access and then go back and you can coat it with new oil. But you don't want to leave the metal exposed. They are nickel plated, but because machines have sat for long, one of the reasons you don't get as much rust as you might normally have expected is because machines had old sewing oil, and that old oil, even though it oxidized and turned brown or amber or some sort of yellow color, it was actually protecting. Where you don't want that is between the moving parts, right? So if I've got parts, I need fresh oil in there because the old oil is not going to be a good lubricant. However, the old oil on the areas of the metal parts that are not coming in contact, they're really not. It's not about moving parts against each other. You can see some of the old oil. I don't know if it's picking up on the camera. I can see a little bit of it on my take-up arm. Again, if that aesthetic bothers you, no problem. You can remove it with alcohol, but go back and coat that part with some fresh oil. Just a little hint there for why old oil is not always a bad thing. So, what about my pressure bar right here? Okay. One thing you can do is you can remove, this is your thread cutter, by the way, that's what that's doing there. And I can look underneath to see if that is in fact rust. We'll make that a separate video because I can already tell I'm gonna go long on this one. All right, what else have we got? We have to oil underneath. Okay, I'm gonna need my little rolls of towel here to help support my machine because it is heavy and it will go rolling. Now, look here, guys. Do you see the oil dripping? I've put more oil than the machine normally gets. For normal oiling, you don't want to do that. You just create a mess. But here, I did this intentionally. I didn't do this by accident because I know, I'm going to be mopping up a little bit of excess oil. But this is one of the things that is helpful in getting an old machine to wake up because they are so dry. Normal oil instructions don't really help you. All right, what else have we got here? Okay, so we're going to come here underneath and we're going to finish our machine oiling. All right. So, you may have seen this in other videos. Again, I like to start here, work my way down. It's mostly so I don't forget certain areas. So you have an oiling point there and an oiling point there. Well, where else? There's also two further back. And you could easily miss those, okay? So there's one here, and there's one over here. So there's a metal piece here. It's shaped like the letter T. Okay, and it comes in contact with these two pieces. Okay, so you don't forget those. Those are easy to miss. All right, let's keep working. We'll work our way down. We have quite a few areas here in the needle area. See if we can zoom in a little bit for you guys. I'll give you sometimes it's helpful to see it from this angle. And don't forget, you have the option of using what? Turning your drive shaft there to see what's moving. That's a lot better to me than some of these very rough drawings in the manuals. They did the best they could, I guess. But all right. So as we come down here, we have a number of moving parts. There's actually like a little cam section here. I want to get that nicely coated, right? And what else have we got? We have this lower piece moving sideways, but before we go there, let's come here. And you guys see the two holes? Let's give a little bit better zoom here. It's important that I shift the position of the camera so we don't miss things. All right. Sometimes Singer would give us specific holes, right? So you can put oil there and oil there, okay? And it'll take a little bit for that oil to seep through, so go ahead. Normally you would just use that for normal oiling, but I'm going to come up here. You can see where these pieces of steel, my little pointer here for you, right? We see there are pieces of steel that move against each other. And you can tell they're moving because they change angle, okay? And we have yet another right there, okay? So we know that when that piece is moving, okay, boy, it was really happy to get that oil. Hasn't had it in a while. And there was something else I wanted to see here. Yes. So we have a hole right there, right? And that's certainly nice to have, oiled. All right, we're making a lot of progress. Now, there is, and you can see, the reason this movement that you're seeing right now below here, I don't know if it's very subtle. It's actually right, no wonder. Let's move the camera back. All right, I am moving the stitch length regulator. Okay, you see the pieces moving. Now on a machine like this, on a straight stitch, you have that and you have your drive shaft to turn. That's basically what you have in terms of looking to see what parts of this machine are moving against each other that would require oiling. If you've ever seen me oil, say, a Necchi Zigzag or one of the Kenmore multi-stitch machines, we have a lot more linkages to take care of, but that's expected. All right, we don't want to forget down here this movement. And we're going to make sure that we have oil there, and we have another one on the other side, which is sitting, get my support over here, which is sitting right here, okay? So there is well, lost a little bit of my light there. How's that one? There we go. So, let's see if a little close-up will help. Okay, so right here, right? So when you turn the drive shaft, you see this moving. So I need a couple of drops of oil there. Normally one is plenty, but that is a very dry mechanism. Has not been given attention. Now, if any of you, and many of you who watch my channel over the years know this, I often talk about something, and you may have said to yourself watching this, hey, why didn't he address the mechanism for the feed dog lowering mechanism? Can any of you guess? If you know this machine, well, you know why. The fact is, it doesn't have one. They would often sell feed dog covers. In fact, I believe it may have even been a standard accessory when you bought this machine. And in fact, I should remember to pull one out when I do the debut when this machine's ready to go. But they did not have a feed dog lowering mechanism because this design, you know, this machine is an evolution. When it first debuted, I believe, before the year 1900, it did not have, you know, it didn't have this lever. It just had a knob. There was no back tacking. And Singer never did bother to put in a feed dog lowering mechanism. They just gave you a nice cover and said, there you go, because they weren't going to reinvent that wheel. So, all right, everyone, that is essentially the oiling of a Singer 99K. The same procedure I've shown you should apply to a Singer 66, which is the full-size version of this machine, the Singer 185, and sometimes, very often, you'll see K after it. They built this machine in many factories around the world, but the K is just that the machine body was made in Scotland. But this machine was intended and set up with its electricals to be sold in North America. That is how you oil and wake up a machine. Now, if I come over here and start turning the drive shaft here, you can't tell this necessarily, but when I spin it, look, I'm getting a lot. The movement is so much better, so much freer than it was. Now, don't be surprised. In fact, I just saw a little bit of a dribble there, a little bit of an oil dribble. You will often see it come off of your needle bar or your presser bar. This is part, in fact, I see a nice little pool of oil right there. Sewing machine oil is not going to harm your paint finish, thank goodness, because the good folks at Singer knew that was going to get on the machine's paint finish. This is part of the waking up process, okay? You're not going to hurt the machine. You're not quite ready to sew with it. You can do test stitching, but if you've got some beautiful fabric that you're getting ready to do a project with, before you start that project, take some fabric scraps, if I can pronounce that today, and let your machine sort of get a warm up and let it work through some of that excess oil we've applied. Because your normal oiling should never really get, you shouldn't have that many dribbles. But dribbles here, for the purpose of waking the machine up, are fine. Just remember, one last thing here. Never, ever, ever, ever put oil in a sewing machine motor unless it calls for it. This one does not. This one has grease. I've made video on how to service and re-grease this Singer B-Class, B as in Bravo, B-Class motor. There were many, and this one did not have its grease wicks. They had done away with the grease wicks when this one was built, but I showed how to do that. If you do have a sewing machine that has a specification for having oil added, only do it if you know exactly where that oil is to go. None of the holes you see here, never put oil in any of them. Do not. You will damage, you could literally ruin the motor and create a lot of problems for yourself. Okay, so I have oiled everything, but does that mean you're done? If you say, hey, I just watched this video on Vintage Sewing Machine Garage and this guy said oil it, I should be ready to go. Well, not yet. We got a few other things to check. So in the next video, I'm going to go through every area that I just oiled and say, am I pleased with that movement? This sounds you may think it's being overly cautious, but remember, the machine has sat for decades, and you really want to make sure that it's ready to go for you when you ask it to do work. And, in for a penny, in for a pound. If you're going to do this, let's do it right, and not cut corners, because if you cut corners, you know how that goes. You end up having to go back and redo things. So there you go, guys. What was that, 30 minutes worth or something? More than 30 minutes. Talking to you about oiling a sewing machine when you're trying to restore it and getting it ready to sew. Okay? I hope this was helpful. If it was, please put your comments down below. If you have a 99 or a 66 or a 185 and you love that machine, you can please tell us what you think about it. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. There is no cost. And if you would like to donate to the channel to help me find and purchase more machines for teaching more overhaul techniques, just click on any of my videos where you will see the Buy Me a Coffee link, and you can very quickly and easily make a donation of your choice. Thank you all again for tuning in and watching me oil a very old but potentially long-lived machine in the Singer 99K. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.